On May 27, 1997, the Jarrell Tornado struck the small community of Jarrell, Texas, beginning one of the state's most devastating tornado disasters. What started as an ordinary spring afternoon quickly became a nightmare, as a powerful supercell produced a violent tornado that moved toward a residential neighborhood on the outskirts of town. Within minutes, homes would disappear, roads would be torn apart, and an entire community would be transformed, as the tornado's unusual behavior made the destruction even more extreme. By the time the storm moved away, Double Creek Estates had been almost completely erased. This is the story of the tornado that flattened an entire neighborhood. Jarrell was a small rural community in Williamson County, north of Austin, surrounded by farmland, ranches, rural roads, and the open landscape of central Texas. Double Creek Estates was a relatively new residential development where families had built homes among open fields and quiet roads, creating a peaceful neighborhood where residents knew one another. On the afternoon of May 27th, families were going about an ordinary Tuesday, with children nearby and residents carrying on with the simple routines of daily life. Nothing about the neighborhood suggested that it would soon become the center of one of the most destructive tornadoes ever documented, and many residents had experienced severe weather before without imagining that a tornado could erase their community. Across central Texas, warm and humid air was interacting with a developing storm system, creating conditions favorable for severe thunderstorms and tornadoes. One particular supercell began developing unusual characteristics as the afternoon progressed, moving southwestward instead of following the more common northeastward path of many storms. As the supercell strengthened, several smaller tornadoes developed and dissipated across the countryside before the main circulation formed. The storm became increasingly organized as it approached Jarrell, while rain and clouds obscured portions of the circulation and made the danger difficult to see. Shortly after 3:00 p.m., the storm produced a much larger tornado west of Jarrell, and its appearance rapidly changed as multiple vortices developed within the larger circulation. Smaller funnels spun around the main tornado, creating the eerie appearance later associated with the nickname Dead Man Walking. At approximately 3:30 p.m., a tornado warning was issued and warning sirens sounded across the area, giving residents time to seek shelter as the circulation approached from the southwest. Families moved into storm cellars, bathrooms, closets, and other areas they believed could provide protection, while the enormous tornado continued toward Jarrell. As the tornado approached Double Creek Estates, it expanded and intensified, while carrying dust and debris into the air. Then its movement became unusually slow, leaving the neighborhood beneath the violent circulation for an extended period. The tornado began to slow down directly over Double Creek Estates, and what followed would leave almost nothing behind. As the tornado moved through the neighborhood, homes were torn apart, vehicles were thrown across the landscape, trees were stripped of their branches and bark, and asphalt was ripped from surrounding roads. Residents inside shelters had little way of knowing what was happening outside, as the tornado continued destroying everything in its path. By the time the circulation moved away, Double Creek Estates had been transformed into a field of debris, with many homes reduced to fragments and familiar streets almost impossible to recognize. The tornado continued across the surrounding countryside before eventually weakening, leaving a path approximately 7.6 miles long after remaining on the ground for roughly 12 minutes. Survey teams later found approximately 40 homes and other structures destroyed within Double Creek Estates, with some buildings reduced to pieces barely recognizable. The tornado reached a maximum width of approximately 3/4 of a mile, and the damage demonstrated an extraordinary level of violence across the residential area. The tornado was officially rated F5, the highest category on the original Fujita scale, with estimated winds of more than 260 miles per hour. The full human cost became clear when officials determined that 27 people had been killed, with all of the fatalities occurring in the area of Double Creek Estates that experienced the most extreme destruction. For a small community like Jarrell, those deaths reached into nearly every part of town, affecting families, schools, churches, friendships, and generations of residents who had known one another for years. Only after the tornado had passed did the individual stories behind those numbers begin to emerge. One of those stories belonged to 13-year-old John Reyes, who had been sheltering beneath a bed with his grandmother, Emma Mullins, and his 5-year-old cousin Ryan. When the tornado struck their home, the violent winds lifted the bed and mattress and separated John from the people sheltering beside him. But John survived while his grandmother and cousin did not. Another remarkable survival story belonged to Virginia Davidson, who had taken shelter inside her bathtub as the tornado approached. When the storm struck, the bathtub itself was torn from the house and carried through the destruction with Virginia still inside it. Yet she survived and was later reunited with her husband Jim when he returned expecting the worst. For Gerald Gower, the aftermath became a desperate search for his 11-year-old son, Brian, who lived in Double Creek Estates. Gerald returned to the neighborhood, but there was almost nothing left to identify, with homes gone and streets buried beneath debris. Brian was among those who did not survive the tornado, leaving his family to confront a loss that could never be repaired. His story reflected the experience of many families across Double Creek Estates, where the destruction was so complete that even finding a familiar home or personal possession could become nearly impossible. The tornado also destroyed families that had been deeply connected to the Jarrell community, including the Igo family, Larry and Joan Igo, and their 3 children, Audrey, John, and Paul, who were all killed when the tornado destroyed their home. The family was deeply involved in the local community, making their loss especially painful for a town where neighbors, schools, churches, and families were closely connected. As multiple families suffered devastating losses when the tornado crossed Double Creek Estates. In a community as close-knit as Jarrell, the 27 deaths represented far more than a number on a damage report, because each loss meant another family, friendship, classroom, church, or neighborhood connection had been permanently changed. While families searched for loved ones, emergency responders moved into the devastated area and began dealing with the enormous scale of the disaster. The volunteer fire station became a temporary morgue, while the school cafeteria became an emergency shelter, and the local Baptist church became a place where survivors and families could receive support. In the days that followed, survivors returned to what remained of their homes, searching through the debris for photographs, personal belongings, and anything that connected them to the lives they had lived before the storm. Some found almost nothing, while others discovered objects that had somehow survived the destruction. But for many, the hardest part was realizing that homes filled with years of memories had vanished in minutes, leaving them to rebuild not only their houses, but also the sense of community that had made Jarrell feel like home. The destruction also raised important questions about how tornado intensity should be measured. Although Jarrell was officially rated F5, later NIST research questioned whether some of the observed structural damage necessarily required winds at the F5 threshold, highlighting limitations in judging tornado intensity solely from damaged buildings. Those scientific questions did not change what residents experienced that afternoon, because whatever the exact wind speed, the tornado had enough power to destroy an entire neighborhood and kill 27 people within minutes. Yet Jarrell itself refused to disappear. The community began rebuilding while carrying the memories of those who had been lost. And the Igo family's name eventually became part of Jarrell's future when a new elementary school was named Igo Elementary in their honor. The Jarrell tornado lasted only minutes, but its consequences lasted for decades, demonstrating the extraordinary power of a violent tornado, while showing how quickly a familiar neighborhood could become almost unrecognizable. Its legacy lives not only in scientific studies and historical records, but also in the memories of survivors and families who continued forward after unimaginable loss. But the story of Jarrell is ultimately not only about what the tornado destroyed. It is also about the people who survived it, the families who remembered those they lost, and a community that chose to rebuild rather than disappear. On May 27, 1997, a tornado nearly erased Double Creek Estates from the landscape, destroying the homes, streets, and possessions that had defined the neighborhood, but it could not erase the community itself or the memories of the people who called it home. Thank you for watching EpicWildSphere. If you enjoyed this documentary, consider subscribing for more in-depth stories exploring history's most powerful tornadoes and the people whose lives were changed by them. And until next time, stay safe, stay informed, and we'll see you in the next documentary.